Hey, welcome to Eating Enlightenment. I'm here with Christina Rice from Christina Rice Wellness. And Christina has an amazing personal story, an incredible journey she's going to share with us today. I'm a little bit familiar with her story, so I'm just going to jump into it. Can you tell us about the diagnoses the doctors got wrong?
Yes. I mean, many. So, wow. What to say about this? Well, first of all, thank you for having me on the show. I'm excited to be here, but I struggled with pretty severe digestive issues for most of my life. And it wasn't until I got to college that I realized there was something actually wrong. I just thought all of that was normal. And it kind of led me down this path of seeing all these different doctors, and they would just tell me I had IBS. And then things got worse and my digestive system basically stopped working. I lost about 50 pounds in like 3 months.
Like you eat food and it...
Yeah, it wasn't I wasn't digesting or absorbing food. I was eating about 10,000 calories a day. Because I was working with nutritionists at the same time, just like monitoring everything. And I mean, everybody was like, this makes no sense. But that's where it really opened my eyes of like calories in versus calories out it's not that simple. That equation is so complex, and I was just told I had IBS. A few doctors at UCLA told me I was pregnant. So that's pretty much all they gave me. And then finally, over the years, I was diagnosed with candida overgrowth, and then finally SIBO, which took me like a year and a half to finally get diagnosed with. I kept getting tested and they were saying I didn't have it. It was just kind of, for about a year and a half, I pretty much was seeing doctors like it was my job. That's how I kind of moved into more alternative medicine, because I found more people were really like listening to me and telling me I wasn't crazy, because what was happening during that time was when I was seeing a bunch of Western doctors is I was just getting referred to eating disorder treatment, and, went through the whole application process to go inpatient. And I was having I was at a point where I was like, I just want help. And so I eat all the time. Like, that's not the problem, but like, just somebody help me. And then, I get really far down into that path of like, I'm like, if you tell me I should apply for this, fine. Like, just somebody help me. But I was also super nervous because I felt like, okay, if I go to this treatment facility, like, it's not even going to be helping me with what I know the problem is. And then they basically said, like, it was really weird.
That's so tough to like get out of that mindset, because if the doctors are all like telling you got a problem, I feel like I'd be like, okay, yeah, I got a problem. They know better than me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I felt crazy. It was in some ways, because my cognitive function was not at its peak.
For sure, you must have been like in a brain fog. And everything.
I was in severe brain fog. I had severe brain fog, and I was just at the point of total surrender where I was like, whatever you think I need to do, like, I will do. I just want to get better. Mm-hmm. But then it's like, I feel crazy because I'm like, I eat so much food. I'm not afraid of eating food. I definitely had orthorexia and like was very picky about what I ate, because I had come to understand that so many foods made things worse, and I had such severe pain with certain things. I would bring like my roommates or family members to appointments with me so that somebody could vouch that I was eating, because my doctors were just saying like, well, we don't think you're actually eating. And I'm like, okay, well, people live with me.
Oh my God. I don't live by myself. That must have been so frustrating.
Yeah. So it was tough for sure. But I built some resilience and strength through that. And it was kind of a series of, over the years, like putting more and more of the puzzle pieces together. And, testing for gut dysbiosis is, we do our best with what we have, right? But nothing's 100% accurate. So sometimes it can take a while to get to the root of some of those things. And it was, parasites and SIBO and candida overgrowth. And it took me a while to figure out that really where all that was coming from was mold illness. And then I got diagnosed with Lyme disease. So it was kind of just a whole string of things that took a while to put together. But yeah, definitely.
You figured it out.
Yeah, figured it out. Yeah.
What? So
yeah.
it was Lyme disease and overgrowth and
Yeah, so I was having all of these like bacterial overgrowths in my gut that just kept, and once I figured those out, I was really excited. And then I would go through treatment for those and I would feel better usually for a couple of weeks, and then they would just keep coming back. And the thing with recurring, for some people, it's as simple as, okay, we figured out you have small intestinal bacterial overgrowth and you go through, 8 to 12 weeks of treatment for this, and then you feel better, and that's great. But when it keeps recurring, because that's what was happening to me, it just kept recurring over and over again, it's because there is something else deeper that's just causing those gut infections to keep popping up. So for me, it took a while to figure out what was causing those to keep popping up. Why weren't they staying away? Which was first finding out about heavy metals toxicity, and then the mold illness, which a lot of people with chronic illness and just like chronic health symptoms have mold, and then Lyme disease from there. So, and to be honest, I mean, I think some of the quote diagnoses, yes, it helped me to like put a name to it, but now really looking back, I'm not sure like it would have mattered had I gotten diagnosed with Lyme disease, except for just the mental state of like, I need to slow down and change my lifestyle, because I was still eating very well and like supporting my body in the right ways. I just really needed to change my lifestyle. And all of this is really what led me to like more spirituality.
Yeah. Like, cause you got into so many different like areas of healing. Like part of your journey, it sounds like, is after you kind of went through the medical system, you started doing your own work and slowing down. Like, what are the biggest lifestyle changes you made that you feel like helped you out, helped you slow down?
Well, I think the biggest lifestyle changes I made had to do, first of all, just like really listening to my intuition. So it's like slowing down so that I could listen to my intuition. And this is where the whole spiritual piece comes in, and like starting to learn about, it started with Reiki and then learning about the chakra system and how like energetic imbalances in the body rooted in emotional imbalances can manifest physiologically, which is super eye-opening for me. Yeah. And so spending more time on like personal development and self-development. And
how'd you get into Reiki?
Yeah. So, I mean, I was in LA. I went to school. I went to UCLA, and living in LA, I was working for a popular blogger in LA, and she's a yoga teacher and very in the spiritual space. And just being kind of in her environment and doing a lot of work for her, I was, I had never really been into spirituality or energy healing or any of that, but just being around it, I was exposed to it a lot more. So I became more interested in it. But I didn't even necessarily know what it was. I ended up going to see a psychic. It was the first psychic I had ever seen right after I graduated, because my doctor, who is like my functional medicine doctor, who really helped me get out of the thick of it. He truly helped like save my life, was, he works in the ER. He like spends half his time doing his functional private practice, and then he also works in the ER. Like, so he's very like scientifically based. And for me, I needed that, where he had started referring his patients out to certain energy healers and psychics, because he was getting really into the emotional and energetic underpinnings of certain physiological health issues. And I think having his like, just knowing that he was referring that, I was like, okay, I should try this out. And I had hit a point with my health where I didn't know what to do, because I kept doing all the quote right things, and then I would get sick again. And I'm like, there's something deeper here. So again, it's like hitting this point of surrender. So I go to see a psychic, and it was like the most incredible session ever. And then that just kind of got my wheels turning. And she told me, she was like, you're very intuitive, and like, you should really be, you're probably going to be doing something like what I do. And I was like, what? At the time I was working as a nutritional therapy practitioner. And then I ended up having a dream where somebody was telling me like, you should do Reiki. And so then I was like, okay, that was clear. And then I bought a book about Reiki, and I started like just trying to learn more about it. And then somebody, this is so wild. So then that same doctor, like his assistant referred me to this woman who was going to she told me she would do feng shui and she could give me a massage. And I was like, all right, sounds good. She comes over and she walks in and she's like, oh, are you studying Reiki? And I'm like, yeah, I think I might want to become a practitioner, but I don't really know like what to do. I don't really want to go to a random weekend workshop. And she goes, oh, well, I'm actually a Reiki master. That's so funny. And then in that moment I was like, oh, I think you're supposed to be my Reiki master. So then it just felt it was just a lot of synchronicities. And then I ended up studying under her for a while and then became a practitioner. And I just think like Reiki is like the gateway drug into energy healing. And then you just go down the rabbit hole. Have you done Reiki?
I've had a session done with me before. And I remember being super relaxed. And I thought the presence of the person really helped. Cause I was like, a little suspicious of it or like whatever. Mm-hmm. And yeah, it was relaxing, like the hand next to me. And I mean, I'm spiritual too, for sure. Like, but I also am scientific where I'm like, how much of this is, just a placebo? How much of this is really happening? And does it even matter? Like, if it makes me feel mm-hmm. good, then at the end of the day, like, I feel like that is worth something. Mm-hmm. But I feel like these energies, getting in touch with the energy systems in your body. I know for me, I come from a background where I have a hard time feeling my emotions. I remember reading a book when I was 18 and the book was talking about like body language. And I remember thinking like, oh my God, like that's how people are communicating. Like at that time I was like, I only thought people like communicated with words. I was so in that mindset. This is analytical, organizational, cultural family and everything. And so for me, I really felt like a wound, something was missing. And that's when I got into yoga and meditation, because these energies that are there, but we're not necessarily aware of them, they're incredibly powerful and healing and they're there. Like if they're there, there's got to be some sort of science behind them. And I know just getting into yoga, like that yoga works. And I know that meditation works. And I don't know all these other systems like Reiki, but there's got to be something to them. How does Reiki work? Like in a nutshell? And I kind of want to get into like, the rest of your journey too, like from being a prima health coach. I'm curious about that too, but how does Reiki work?
Yeah. So, I mean, we know that everything is energy, right? Like everything is energy. Like this is quantum physics. Everything vibrates at a certain frequency, right? I mean, it's all rooted in physics. And we also know that, like we emit a biomagnetic field outside of ourselves, right?
Yes. There's this organization down in Santa Cruz, HeartMath, which has measured these fields. Mm-hmm. And like by changing your emotional states, it changes the field around you. Like it's measurable. They have like diagrams where they can measure the electric field. Yeah.
Exactly. Right. And that's also how they've done some studies with Reiki practitioners, studying that field that is emitted like from their hands, and it's at a different frequency than somebody who isn't attuned to the Reiki symbols. So like, I mean, I won't lie, like getting into this, part of it is just like this willing suspension of disbelief. You have to kind of just jump in and like, be like, okay, I'm going to believe in this for a second, just to be open to the information. And then you start to see it work and you're like, you can't make this up. You just can't make some of it up. So, but they have studies of where they've studied Reiki practitioners, and Reiki is really just like, one form of energy healing. I think people, and I even use the term, so much of what I do isn't even Reiki. I just use that term because people know what it is. And not every form of energy healing has a specific name, if that makes sense. Yeah. Like, they're not all categorized. It's just like different people have different styles. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But we know, so you're familiar with the chakra system?
I'm somewhat familiar with it, which okay.
Yeah. So the chakra system, I think if anyone like is interested in any of this, just learning about the chakra system itself, I think is very helpful, especially if you have any physiological health issues or emotional imbalances. You can connect different chakras to different emotions, different parts of the body, different parts of life. And the chakras are energy centers in the body. And so we talk about 7 main chakras. There are more than 7, but there are 7 main chakras, starting from the top of the head, moving to the base of the spine, your root chakra. And each of those chakras like I said, is related to certain emotions, certain parts of the body, parts of our lives. And when one of those chakras gets out of balance, then you see like the corresponding effect in somebody's life. So for example, the throat chakra, this has a lot to do with, and it's in your throat. I know not everybody can see me. It's in your throat, of course, right? But this has to do with communication and self-expression, speaking your truth, and sometimes like just your sense of communication with other people. And then this also has to do with the throat, the thyroid, kind of like neck and shoulders, this whole area. And so like bringing it back to my work as a nutritional therapy practitioner, I found this to be incredibly valuable because I worked with so many people who had like chronic illness, like mystery illness. I had seen so many other practitioners, so many doctors, tried all these treatments and couldn't figure it out. I was basically just attracting in clients that were similar to me. I think because people knew I have that fire to figure it out. And so, for example, somebody with Hashimoto's, if we started to work on, right, Hashimoto's having to do with the thyroid dysfunction. That's an autoimmune disease, if people don't know, having to do with thyroid dysfunction. But if we started to work on that person's sense of their communication and their self-expression, fully expressing themselves, speaking their truth, talking about having difficult conversations, speaking out about how they were feeling, then suddenly their thyroid symptoms would go away. And because it was putting that chakra back into balance. And so we see these energetic imbalances come from emotional imbalances, which then manifest physiologically. Does that make sense?
No, it totally does. I 100% agree with the overall principle, like emotions, energy are underneath. And I feel that chakras can provide a great way of like talking about these things. Like it's really important. I know for emotional eating, I don't work with people with the chakra system per se, but like a big thing in emotional eating is being able to communicate, be able to say no, or like, hey, like I've had enough. I need some time for myself to draw a boundary or something like that. So where I struggle with is like, I can't quite make that leap that's in my throat. I feel like that's like a human issue. I feel like the chakra system about the throat brings up a conversation about like, hey, your throat is tight or something. I mean, Hashimoto's if that's different, but like maybe someone is like feeling tension in their throat, and I feel like that can bring up the conversation about like, what are you feeling and what's going on. Yeah. But your way of talking about chakras, I resonate with more because some of my yoga training was like, I couldn't quite get behind the colors. I was like, you're telling me like there are different colors. Like, dude, this is like, I'm like, I get it. Like have a straight posture, be in touch with your body, understand how the feelings in your body, like that's great, amazing wisdom. I couldn't quite get behind like some of the things behind the chakras.
Yeah. And I think it's so complex too. Like, but with the colors, in some ways, if you don't even want to get into it, it's totally fine. I think it's just a helpful way to see them. And I know like, especially when I was first learning Reiki, it's like sending people energy. I can visualize that color and it helps me feel very intentional. It's kind of a tool to help it feel intentional. Like I'm going to send, blue, like this color blue energy to this person. It helps me stay more focused. But then also when you start to dive into, we were talking about everything is energy. Everything is vibrating really at a subatomic level. And that means everything has a frequency. And we know that emotions have frequencies as well. And so do colors, right? Color is frequency. So that's how this is all kind of like related, right? It all comes back to the frequency. Same with like the vibration, like the frequency of this energy center in the body, right? So if my throat chakra is supposed to be at this certain frequency that matches up with blue, and then it's balance, it's vibrating at a different frequency than it is naturally supposed to when it's in alignment. Now we have a misalignment and your throat chakra is out of balance. Does that make sense?
So yeah, totally. So like, what were you, when you got in touch with Reiki, like what were you feeling in your body, like energetically? Were you, and you can use chakra language, was your gut off or was your throat off, or like what was off, and what energies did you end up bringing into alignment to kind of move on with your journey?
Yeah. So with the chakras, when people have like chronic symptoms, that chakra tends to be off a lot. But then it's kind of like a mood ring, or things can be off at different times. So if I'm seeing somebody regularly, I'm like, all right, your throat is a little off this week. Like, what are you not talking about? And they'll be like, oh, it's because I'm in a fight with my boyfriend and I don't want to talk to him. And I'm like, I haven't told him how I really feel. Like, it always brings up what they need to talk about. And to your point, I'm also at some level, I'm like, I feel like the deeper I go into it, I understand more of the scientific basis, but also on the other level, I'm like, who cares what the road there is? I'm getting people to talk about what's going on, you know?
Yes.
Yeah. So there's that piece too. And also for me, like, and this is why people believe in it. Like, is I can have a session with somebody who I've never talked to before. I don't know anything about them. I don't even see them if it's distance, right? I don't even know what they look like. And I will tell them, I'll be like, so these 3 chakras are out of balance. So what this is telling me is like, you know, what is, and I'll say like, it feels like a thyroid thing, or it feels like a communication thing. You're not getting it out. Or your sacral chakra is out of balance. So, and it feels like it's something going on with your period. Right. And they're like, yeah, that's exactly what it is. And so, I mean, when you have that experience, you're like, okay, that makes sense. But for me personally, the chakras, for most people, their crown is out of balance. Like the majority of people, just
like they're
because
thinking a lot, or
it's like, thinking a lot. And also this has to do with our sense of like greater sense of purpose and connection with source. Like it's like these bigger questions in life that, you know, most people are thinking a lot and up in their heads and feel like they don't have it all figured out. So that's more the crown. So that's pretty much always out of balance for most people. I do have some clients where it's in balance. They're very zen. But for me, the biggest ones are my solar plexus, which has to do with digestion, and my sacral chakra, which is the reproductive system and creativity, sexuality. And my period was missing for over 4 years. And so that one was off. And so I did a lot of work on that chakra and got it back. Finally. So those are the 2 main ones that were out of balance, like pretty consistently. And then as different things went on in my life, you know, other things could get
like
off.
If someone resonates with like, so let's say like let's say the solar, whichever chakra, when you did Reiki and got into these energy systems, did you notice like discomfort in that area, or like, is that how you started working with it? You noticed where the energy, like, because when you say imbalance, right, like that means some sort of discomfort, some sort of tension, or
so the person is having their experience, right? From my side, if I am, you know, doing energy healing with somebody, it can present differently for different people, and it usually makes sense to them. Like sometimes it feels like for example, with the solar plexus, sometimes it will feel like a knot. Like I feel like there's just a big knot there energetically, if that makes sense. It's just how it feels for me. And this is where the intuitive piece comes in. It feels like a knot. And then sometimes it feels like just this empty. It's like, it just feels empty, like an empty hole. And at that point, I'm like, you need some more good bacteria in there. Like we need some probiotics, you know? Or sometimes it literally feels like, I feel like there are critters in there, which is usually when somebody has like some gut dysbiosis, some like a pathogen in there that they need to, you know, go on some antimicrobials or something. So I'll tell them, I'll be like, you know, you should bring this up to your practitioner and just like have them test for it, you know, like look for it. So it kind of feels differently there. Or with the sacral chakra, which is one that I probably work with the most, to be honest, with business clients and from nutrition clients. That one, you know, that's the reproductive system, and then also sexuality, creativity, family. And that often feels to me like it's like there's sludge. Often it's like clogged. And so usually those people, they need like a detox. They need like to support their livers and like get some of the sludge out of there, or it'll just feel like empty, like cobwebs. And, you know, because my period is missing for so long, and I talked about that so much on my platforms, and then ended up getting it back. And I started working with I've worked with a lot of women who have missing periods and helping them get it back. And again, I tend to attract people who are on these like squeaky clean diets, take all the supplements. I've seen all the practitioners. So I started just coming at it with a different approach. I'm like, you're doing all of these things. So what if we just focus on supporting your sacral chakra, which what that looks like is embracing your feminine energy, embracing your sexuality, getting creative. Like, and then they would start to make these lifestyle changes and it would come back.
Yeah, no, totally. I know, like, I've been coming from a background of like personal training and nutrition as well. And I just feel so much that there's so much nutrition, but like it's mind and body, you know, like it's emotions and nutrition combined.
Yeah.
I feel like that's the root of a big part of your message is like, you can get the nutrition perfectly or even too perfect with the orthorexia. And if we're missing these emotions, if we're missing what's these creative energies in the body, if we're not connected to the inner part, it's something's gonna go wrong. You know, like it's just gonna go wrong.
Yeah, I think it's the most powerful thing. And I mean, it's funny for me thinking about where I'm at right now and versus, I mean, who I was even like 3 years ago, where I was just so into the science, like this hard science of nutrition and fitness and like all of this. And I wanted to fit everything in a box. And then I would get so frustrated when there would be situations that I couldn't stick in that box. Like all these clients that were coming to me, or even myself, I'm like, I'm doing everything right. I've seen all the top practitioners, like something is still off. And so there's something deeper that's going on. And then I was getting like really amazing results for myself and for people when I started going the more energetic route. So
there's something so important you bring up about surrender, because I feel like so many people, they've been taught this like very logical way of viewing like health is a plan. Like I just follow the plan. The doctor gave me a plan. I just got to follow the plan. It's all straightforward and just follow the plan. But that way of viewing health and wellness and everything, it can be really challenging for people to, you know, like, I think the biggest defense people come up with is kind of this snorting, like disdain for, emotions, Reiki, like, like it's really, there's some sort of surrender when to get to the other side where you're integrating emotions into your health. I feel like there's some gap where you got to be like, okay, shit, like what I've been doing just hasn't been working. Like,
and when people are like, it's everybody's on their own journey, right? But to me, and everybody can believe in whatever they want to believe in. To me, when you get so deep in the science, you also understand how much of science gets debunked and how many studies are shitty studies. And then you start to realize, okay, there's more than meets the eye here. And then there's also this thing of, it's not
and the crazy side of science too. Like so much of science is logical, but then like a lot of science is actually like pointing to the power of intentions, to the power of the mind, to like these, there's even a good amount of science for like remote viewing, which is like where you view stuff from afar. And I mean, side note, but I mean, aliens, right? I mean, there's now the Pentagon has released videos of aliens. I know that's maybe a separate topic of science, but just like there's a side to science that is like not mainstream.
Yes.
And it's still that there's a big side of it, and it's real. It's yeah.
Well, and I mean, exactly. The thing is, I can find a study, quote, proving anything. Like there's something on every side. And like,
totally,
we have mirror neurons. We see on brain scans that if I visualize intentionally that I'm moving my arm and I'm not actually physically moving it, the same part of my motor cortex lights up as if I actually physically move it. Like this is why visualizations work. But like, there's also this element of if you haven't had chronic illness or hit this lowest of lows, like, I mean, you can't experience what I've experienced. Do you know what I mean? Like, and so for me, it's like, I don't really worry about what other people think, because I'm like, look, until you have been in my body and like hit this point where you think like, I'm doing everything, quote, right by the books. Like I could not be more perfect. And the only answer I get is you're doing everything right. But like, you literally feel like you're going to die. At that point, your only option is, okay, I'm open to anything. Like put me in a secret lake that's going to be the fountain of life. Like I don't care.
This is why I got into like binge eating and emotional eating, because like I had this like good life, quote unquote, but there was just something wrong with me. Like
Mm-hmm.
I was getting good grades in school and you know, whatever. And I could fit in, but there was just this big like wound, this big hole. And it was like, what is up with this? That's why I left to become a monk for a long time. I lived in a monastery but yeah, if something's not working, like you become willing to open
Mm-hmm.
your mindset. Oh, I had a thought. Where's the thought? Oh, I had a thought. Darn it. Oh, well, hopefully it'll come back. What do you think about mushrooms, psilocybin?
I haven't explored that at all. I have been thinking about it recently. Like I'm curious to try psilocybin, but I'm not really like a big, I hadn't even smoked marijuana until like a year ago, and I've only done it a handful of times. I'm just not a big, like,
Yeah.
you need anything. Like I don't drink. I think
No, that's
like,
cool. Yeah, no, I just
yeah,
wanted because that's kind
yeah.
of like an alternative side of science, which, you know, it's not mainstream, but
Mm-hmm.
it's getting out there. And I think
Yeah.
just from my own experience, it really can shift people in a, you know, if you're safe setting,
Yeah.
you know, you've kind of done some
I think
work
it
to
can
lead
be
up to it.
it can be a helpful tool. I think I have maybe controversial opinion, but whatever, story of my life. Like
Go for it.
with different types of like plant medicines and like, especially with, I mean, I could go off on ayahuasca. And it's not like I think any of this is bad. I think it's a tool, but I
Yeah.
also think I personally believe you need to earn the right to get there, because what people do is they bypass all of this this deeper work that you can be doing without having anything else in your body, right? Just as you are doing this deep work, and they try and bypass that because it's hard. It's hard. And they jump straight to like, and not everybody jumps straight to that. So I want to be clear, but I'm talking about the people who do jump. They're like, I'm going to go on an ayahuasca journey, or like, I'm going to do psilocybin. I'm like, but you haven't, in my opinion, if you haven't earned the right to get there, like you're not in the right place. Right. And so it's like, I feel like do all the work you can in this earthly realm without anything else, do the deep work that I know is uncomfortable, but that's also what helps you grow. And then you'll hit a point where like, yes, this is my next journey. But I think people just jump to it because they want to bypass the hard stuff here.
No, that so resonates, because I mean, in some ways I left society and became a monk because I wanted to reach enlightenment. I thought that existed and I just wanted to like go away. Yeah, and there is some element of that. I know like the science on psilocybin it's you bring up a great point, where the research being done these days is like you do some mushrooms in a controlled setting with a guide, and then you get some counseling afterwards. Because if you just have these experiences and you don't kind of have some skill sets of feeling and calming yourself down and just how to kind of understand your body, really how to listen and interpret your body signals, without that skill sets, I feel like you'll get this thing, but then there's no framework to change.
Yeah. And then people come back into their lives and they do the same stuff, or maybe they have this big moment of clarity, but then how do you actually implement that instead of like changing at a root level? It's almost like somebody who wants to get in shape. And so for like 2 weeks, they work out for like 5 hours a day, and then like they stop, you know what I mean? They're like, okay, now what? It's like this intensity. And to me, if somebody is looking for that, like before you ever do ayahuasca or psilocybin, I'm like, work with an intuitive energy healer, like weekly for a bit, and then let me know, because
that's some good advice.
Yeah, I have quite a few clients. Actually, I just had this conversation with somebody yesterday, and she goes, Christina, like our work together like our meditations, it's crazier than any psychedelic experience I've ever had. It's like all in that kind of stuff. And I'm like, yeah, because this is like deep stuff. It's not using escapism to try and get to the root. It's like getting to the root here, and then you can, I think, earn the right to get there. It's kind of like with nutrition. It's like ketogenic diets. Like I'm not.
You were on that. You were on like, let me read all these, by the way. I have the other page up here. I've done the potato diet, AIP, low FODMAP, keto, carnivore, high carb, low carb, Medi-Cal, medium protocol, you name it.
Yeah.
Oh, my thought, by the way, was I can't imagine eating 10,000 calories a day, because that's a lot of food. Yeah. And then the doctor's saying, we don't trust you. Oh my God, that would drive me crazy. by the way.
Yeah, no, I mean, yeah, it was. I mean, I literally drank jars of almond butter. Just if anyone's wondering, it was just like a lot of. I was just trying.
I mean, that's how much Michael Phelps was eating back in the day. I've watched YouTube videos where it's like his breakfast is like, or his dinner is like 2 large pizzas, like 5 energy drinks, or it's just like, what?
Yeah,
this is insane.
I was eating a lot of like rotisserie chickens. Like I would eat a whole rotisserie chicken at a meal, and then I would like as a snack like drink a jar of almond butter and like.
You lost 50 pounds in 3 months. That's crazy.
Yeah,
Holy
and that's
shit.
why it was like. Had something, and it was very quick. It was a very quick, and to me, like you can't be looking at this like this happen and tell me like I'm making like it's not realistic. Do you know what I mean? Like I don't know. So
yeah. There was something
was awry, and it was.
So like you've gone on your own journey. You've learned a bunch of these different tools and healing and everything. And nowadays, what do you do? So you have a course. What was it called? No BS. No bullshit business school and brain rewiring certification course. I love it. So what are you up to these days? I know you're helping people. How are you helping people?
Yeah. So I don't see nutrition clients anymore one-on-one. I pretty much help people in a few. So with business, I do business coaching for other like coaches, trainers, energy healers. That's for No Bullshit Biz School, where I basically just teach them how to build their businesses. And it's also teaching them a lot about how to coach, and like they also get incorporated. I think it's really helpful I'm a big believer in, if you're a practitioner, not to just stay in one lane. Like, yes, there's something to niching, but you like, let's say you want to be a keto nutritionist. Fine, cool. I think it's great to niche down, but also you need to, in your framework, be able to work with a client where keto isn't working and go to something else and not judge all of these other styles of eating, because everybody is so different.
Totally.
And so really teaching people kind of more about how to be a good practitioner too. And so that's what No Bullshit Biz School is. And we do a lot of energy work in there too. And I'm a big believer in I'm very into marketing strategy and all the logistics and all the tangibles, but also just as much the energy of business, because I have burnt myself out trying to build a business before and then kind of found an easier way. And with the brain rewiring certification course, that's a certification program so people can become coaches certified in brain rewiring, which is basically learning to rewire neural pathways in the brain, which started off as my business partner, Rachel. She has built an incredible business helping people heal from chronic illness using brain rewiring. So she focuses on that, but we also, and I use that to heal a lot of my symptoms too. And then we've applied it to business, and you can use it for relationships. So it's really about, it's just rewiring the brain. So we're training coaches to learn how to do that. And then I also have a monthly membership, which is kind of moving things into group now, which is a lot about, I have a ton of like health, nutrition information in there too, like different healing protocols and all that. But now it's really much more about the energetics, growing your intuition, energy healing, learning about, chakras and that whole world. So we have Q&A calls and just a ton of information in there for people who love everything wellness, and then also all of the energy side. And then I see clients one-on-one for like intuitive sessions as well. So those are kind of all the ways I work with people.
For sure. No Bullshit. That's on your website. Why? And you also mentioned like No Bullshit Wellness, I think, on your website as well. What motivates you to put that in there? I like it.
Yeah, I mean, just because I think anyone who knows my personality, that's just very my style. Like, I'm just like, I don't bullshit anyone. I don't really sugarcoat things. I just say it like it is. And I feel like it has come up in different layers of wellness and the spiritual world, all of this of just like bullshit. Like so much of, from nutrition, it first starts off as everybody telling you to be on, what's healthy is like a 1200 calorie, low fat, low carb diet. And you're like, well, that's bullshit. And like with fitness, it starts off as like, stop running. You don't need to run 2 hours a day to be in shape, like lift some weights. So then that's bullshit. And then you get into the, like, what you think is real. And it's like, for me, it was like, hardcore paleo and like all resistance training and like all of this stuff. And then you're like, but there's bullshit in here too. And like, now I'm keto for 2 years and like, but there's also bullshit there. Right. And it's just like all of this bullshit. And so my thing is that, and why I tend to trigger people is because I try all the diets and I see value in diets. And I also think all of them have pieces of bullshit to them. And like, cause the thing is, I'm just very much like, there's no one right. So like,
that's my biggest thing. Mm-hmm. They all have some wisdom in there, but when you say it's one way, I mean, that's my problem with like organized religion in a lot of ways. I think it has great truths, but as soon as you say it's this way or the highway, I'm like, that just doesn't work for me.
Yeah, no, I felt the same way. I mean, I grew up Catholic and I've explored different religions and now I'm very spiritual, but the reason why I didn't resonate with, like, I used to think I was just not, I'm not religious, I'm not spiritual. I just didn't explore any of that because I felt like I had to fit in a box and none of them fully resonated. And now just being at a place where I'm like, it's just my own spirituality. And like, it doesn't have to match up with anyone else's, but it's what makes me feel good and what makes me feel connected. So yeah, and just releasing.
Where's your, just as we kind of wrap up today, just one question I had was like, what's your, where are you struggling right now? Or like, where's your growth point? I know for me, like I'm trying to communicate more by stories. Like I've just I'm realizing like stories are like really fundamental to humans. Like there's something like stories are like DNA almost. And so that's been kind of like a challenge for me, like to tell more stories, something that I'm embracing, that can either enhance my business or relationships and all that. But it's also a struggle for me. I'm like, man, stories are like they don't really come naturally to me. I'm more of like the meditator who will sit in silence and be good with that. So stories can be challenging. What's like your challenging but worthwhile endeavor right now?
I think more and more, I feel like I have to master this at different levels of like being able to hold space for a lot of people, but not take on all of their stuff just because I get so emotionally invested in people I work with because I love them so much and I get to know them, and like being able to have the more my business grows, the more boundaries I have to set just for my own mental sanity and just so I can show up fully. And like, especially recently, I'm like, I need to redo my whole calendar, which comes down to like the logistics of time management, where it's like, I can't, be on calls from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. all day because I'm just exhausted. And like, as things grow, it's like recalibrating, right? How things are looking, and also me needing more and more time for myself to reset so I can show up fully. And so I think that's kind of where I'm working on right now. And it just like keeps showing up in different ways of like, okay, I set really good boundaries and everything's good. And then things grow a bit. And now I'm like, all right, now I have to redo this just to make sure that I can continue to hold relationships without bursting.
Yeah, I remember a quote by Warren Buffett, and he said like, what's the secret to getting rich or whatever? And he said, or like, what sets you apart from other people? He's like, I think I'm better at saying no than other people.
That's what it is.
There's some truth to that. There's some truth to that. How do you say no?
It's like, and you can get, and for me, it's, and I talk to my clients about this all the time of like saying no. And it's like, I'll get really good at it. And then like something shifts and now it's like hard again because there's something else coming up. Yeah. But realizing that like, I mean, for me right now, I have been really nudged to not see any more one-on-one business clients, which like, I'm like, I love my clients. Like I can't, and there's this big piece of me that's like, I can't not do this, but I just also know I can't sustain it. And I just feel very nudged to not do that and move everything into group. So it's like, okay, but for every no, like I'm not going to see anyone one-on-one, but now I can have more people in group settings and do more for my groups and help more people. So it's like for every no, there are more yeses.
Yeah.
And really just trusting the process and seeing the bigger picture. But I keep having to recalibrate. But yeah, I mean, to grow a business, you have to say no. And also for mental sanity, especially now with so much access to people,
Oh yeah. Your phone's always on and the walls are, you can get a text message at whatever time and
Yeah. I mean, I have people who like, they'll send me an email and I don't see it because I only check. I'm really good about my technology boundaries. And that's one thing I pride myself on. I'm really good about it. And like, I only check things at certain times and then I'm off. And if I'm with somebody, I'm off. I'm not like on my phone while I'm with a friend or anything. And that's what I need to stay sane. But like, somebody will send me an email at 8 a.m. in the morning. I don't see it. I haven't checked it. And then they text me. I don't see it because I only check my phone certain hours. And then they DM me and they leave a comment and they're like telling me, hey, check your messages. And I'm like, it has been 12 hours. Like, there's no need to tell me 4 times. Like I have a system. I will see it. I'm like, I will see it.
Yeah.
So, and I think just because we have so much access to people don't realize how that can come across the other person.
Yeah.
Like from their side, they're just trying to be helpful and like, let me know like, oh yeah, I sent you a message maybe, or just trying to be annoying, but I like to give the benefit of the doubt.
That's good.
And especially because people will say, hey, I know you're really busy. So I just wanted to let you know I sent you an email because they like want me to go look for it. But and in my head, I'm like, okay, but now I have another text message.
Yeah. Totally.
Yeah. So just having boundaries, saying no to people, having certain barriers, which just allows me to actually fully show up more fully for people.
Absolutely.
That I do serve. Yeah.
I know the importance of like focusing and working hard and then that breather. I know high performers and everybody like, we like to think that whoever you look up to, role models, or like could be, we tend to think like they're working all day long, but there's been tons of stuff that shows like the highest performers they work really hard for an hour or 2 hours or whatever, and then they wind it back for a while and then they go again. And it's like cycles, relaxation, go, and boundaries. And anyways, yeah. Let's summarize as we wrap up. Where can people contact you? I know you got ChristinaRiceWellness.com.
Yeah, that's my website, which is a great place to find all of my offerings. I'm the most active on Instagram. My handle is Christina Rice Wellness. That's a great way to connect with me, leave a comment. I love hearing from people. And my podcast is called Wellness Realness Podcast. So those are the main places to find all of my stuff. If you go to any of those, you'll find everything.
Sweet. I love it. And I always end, what's your biggest eating enlightenment, your biggest shift in how you viewed your relationship to food?
I've tried many different diets and like we were talking about, I think they all have some value to them, but then also there can be some downfalls. And I think the biggest thing for me was realizing that the most important thing for me with the way I eat is that I'm very intentional and grateful, and really realizing where that food came from and showing a lot of gratitude for that. And I think it's the intentionality behind how we eat and why am I eating this? Right. Because I'm excited about it. I'm grateful for it. I really appreciate it. And I am nourishing my body. And just the way I approach actual eating, I think has been the most powerful thing for me.
Love it. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me.